As a preliminary matter, this is a public meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I am Howard Tracer, the chairman. Tonight's public hearing is for the Village at Cricket Lane. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. ZBA members, Eric Stein,
Here.
Mario Carnavelli, and is the planning board liaison, Larry Murphy, here?
I
Yes.
don't see him.
Okay, and staff, Susan Noyce,
Here?
and anticipated speakers, Lisa Mead,
Here.
town council. Okay, thank you. Good evening. Today is Thursday, December 3rd, 2020, and it is 7:30 PM. And this is an open meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals, which is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission, sorry about that. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for the meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the zoning board is convening by telephone conference, video conference via Zoom, as posted on the agenda of the Zoning Board of Appeals section of the town's website, identifying how the public may join in. You may participate by going to http://zoom.us and entering meeting ID 859-1257-0968 and passcode 561-753, or by calling 929-205-6099, entering meeting ID 859-1257, and if prompted, enter passcode 561753. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video or telephone conference. Material has been provided to the zoning board members, and documentation is also available to the public on the town's website. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, Howard Tracer, Chairman, will introduce each item on the agenda. As a participant, we ask that you keep the following in mind. Please mute when you are not speaking. For telephone, *6, or a computer, click the on-off mute button. Please use earbuds or earphones with tablets and cell phones. Please speak directly, or please speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Please be aware that as video participants, you are attendees in a meeting. Participants can see you, and care should be taken to eliminate interruptions while you are participating on your computer. Anything that you broadcast on your video will be captured by the recording. I will yield the floor to the applicant and/or their representative, and will invite them to present their application or further information that was requested. If the applicant and/or their representative wish to share their screen, please request through the chairman so that you can be given permission to do so. I, Howard Tracer, the chairman, will afford ZBA members the opportunity to request to speak or ask questions at any time. Further, I will afford public comment by participants as follows. I will seek questions through the raise hand function. For video conference participants, the function can be accessed by clicking on the participants option listed in the menu below the photo gallery. Hover your cursor in this area if you don't see it. Window will open and display on the right. On the bottom of this participant area, you will see the list of phone and video participants, and on the bottom you will see the ability to click on a button to raise hand. Please ensure your name is displayed. List your name, address, and your question. Telephone participants can use their phone's keypad while in a Zoom meeting to raise hand by hitting *9. I will seek to call upon questions from the public that have hit the raised hand button in the order of which they are listed. Please identify your name and address, then your question or comment. Your hand will be lowered when you have been given the floor for your questions. We will continue down the list of those in the raised hand column. Should there be a physical or electronic submittal of questions or concerns that were received, they will be read for record at this time. We will now move to the agenda. Eric, would you read tonight's agenda, please?
Public hearings, Cricket Lane LLC, 55R Pearson Drive. The applicant is requesting a comprehensive permit under General Law, Chapter 40B, Section 20-23, to construct the village at Cricket Lane for 24 single-family detached homeownership units on Assessor's Map R20-0-75.
Okay, good evening. Is the applicant here?
Yeah, unmute here. Hold on. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, good evening. Douglas DeShane, representing Cricket Lane Development LLC. With me this evening, Walter Erickson, the manager of Cricket Lane, as well as Ben Osgood, our engineer from Ranger Engineering. Good evening. Hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, and we appreciate your time. It is my understanding that the environmental peer review process is still ongoing, and that we are going to defer discussion of those specific comments between our wetlands people and your peer review consultant until your next meeting. And that we are going to tonight to kind of focus on addressing questions and concerns that have been raised by the board, for which I believe I have provided written responses to most of those, or if not all of them. I hope I have. We have no new information to present, but again, we are prepared to expand on our answers or to answer any additional questions or concerns the board has, or to discuss any new information or plans or data that the board would like to see. But again, we have no new information, but we are prepared to discuss and address any comments or concerns the board still has.
All right, thank you. So I think what we'll do, Eric, since you presented the questions and the response was to you or to the board, maybe you could review or comment on the responses at this time.
Sure. Okay, so there were several questions asked, and yes, there was a response given, so we appreciate that in receiving this. And I guess I'll walk through them as sort of quickly or as I can, and then spend time where I think it's needed for what was presented. So for the first one's request for additional plans, landscaping plans. And the question was arrived from previous plans presented seemed to, I guess in some of the presentations of what was discussed and what was presented on the plan didn't quite seem to match, and so I was looking for that. Can you provide the date of the most current landscaping plan, and will there be one updated as part of the submission?
Well, we've provided a street landscaping plan, which we had, I provided a colored copy of that plan earlier, and I provided an additional copy. It's not our intention at this point, unless the board has specific requested additions to that, that we were going to provide a new street landscaping plan. We felt our plan was fairly comprehensive. It shows street trees that meet your your general subdivision requirements. And then we showed where we would have additional plantings and shrub beds along the roadways and intersections. We have not provided significant amount of detailed landscaping with respect to the individual homes. We did provide some 3D renderings of the homes, and I do believe some of them showed, a small amount of landscaping along the front of the homes. My client has just completed development of one of the models that we're proposing to build here. And we are hoping that the landscaping on that home can be completed shortly, so that we could actually provide photographs of completed home with the completed landscaping. But I know Mr. Erickson is in the process of doing that this week as we speak. So Walter, maybe you could help me with that a little.
Yeah, so the landscape plan that we submitted showed the street trees and shrubs and bushes that we planted along the street that were in excess of the town's requirements. But they were landscape features to be used in the common area, the intersections. And in addition to those, we'll be planting trees and shrubs in front of some of the underground transformers that have to be put in place. And then each one of these homes has a small farmer's porch. And in front of the farmer's porch, we typically would plant 6 to 10 shrubs and a variety of flowers such as Stelladora day lilies or mums, depending on the season. So the actual landscaping in front of the houses, in front of the farmer's porch, is going to be determined by the grade and the specific house style that goes there.
Okay, I guess if I may just back up a second and say that the questions all come about from a sense of place and the architectural style in which you intend to produce in this development. I mean, there's been a lot of discussions just about the civil on the site as necessary, about traffic as necessary, but the essence of what you're building and the community that you're providing, and once you build it and once it's sold and once the home ownership gets a hold of it, what really is this place that we're approving for the living conditions that you intend the people that live there have the checks and balances been thought about to make this a thriving community that lasts and is equal to basically everywhere else in Newbury. And the last thing we want to see is someone come in and probably not the right wording, but cram a bunch of houses on a site where you have 15 acres and maybe you could get 14 houses on it, put in twice as many homes. And what kind of living condition are you creating to sell? And for that to hopefully make sure that your intentions of your pro forma are in order, so that what you intend to build and sell these for, that once you get started and put in all the infrastructure, that you can actually sell all these homes. Because the last thing Newbury wants is to be left holding the bag on a half development that doesn't get completed and runs out of funds and is left half done. And I think as the ZBA and the permitting authority that we have an interest to make sure that you can carry through in the essence of this. And so these questions are all focused around the essence of the development and the homes and the sense of place that you're going to be building, and whether things like landscaping need to be looked at a little bit more carefully. And I say that because you've got 3 homes, 22, 23, and 24 that back up to this soccer pitch. And these people will be having a home, and maybe they're maybe they're partiers and they love it, but otherwise they're gonna be buying a home and then find out that kids are running around from 8 till midnight on a soccer pitch that their house backs up to. And the other issue is that the homes barely, have the 10 feet between them, but it's what's going to grow in there in terms of the essence and the place of landscaping that you barely get grass to grow in some of these conditions. And the zoning for Newbury is an acre, and at 40,000 square feet is the minimum for, a typical lot. Otherwise, for, differences for planned developments that provide conservation area with them. But that's the essence. And then for some of these homes where you're standing on the driveway at the front door, there's 15 feet between the front door and the back grade where the grading disturbance stops. So what kind of backyard and what kind of, if these were all professional homes with no kids, it might be different than if you had a neighborhood with kids running around that had to play in the street because they can't play in the backyard because it's too steep. So, we on the zoning board strive, and we have, we have a small town. We have a small community. We have lots of interesting issues between Plum Island and the other side of town in terms of what we deal with. And I think the essence here is just to make sure that you're building and developing a development that will stand the test of time. And we'd like to see you build something that property values increase over time and doesn't become neglected because of the cramming and the space conditions that frankly don't exist otherwise in Newbury. And you'd be
Well-
hard pressed to find a development anywhere like this. And the fact that you picked up this plan and just and bought it and represented it with minimal or changes to it just begs the question of how much thought that was put into it. So I've said my piece, and if we read through these questions, I just wanted to let you know and understand the essence of what I was trying to get at. And
All
yes,
right,
you
and
have.
if I could just respond to some of your concerns.
Yep.
Because some of your comments are valid, and I appreciate that. I take pride in the communities that we develop. This will be my 5th 40B development. We've just completed 28 units in Westford, and I would welcome anybody to go view that project in Westford, Sugar Maple Lane. It's townhouse condominium, so it's a little different, but I didn't believe that the townhouse units would be appropriate in this location. So when we looked at the plans that were already presented here, I think that the engineer had done a very good job of creating a village, which this is. And the house plan that we've hired the architect to do fits with this village. One of the things that we've done is set up a homeowners association, and we've sent you a copy of those homeowners documents. The homeowners association will be controlling all the landscaping, the sprinkler system for the grass, the maintenance of the grass, and the great maintenance of all the common areas. And we do that so that we do have a consistent and attractive and aesthetically appealing and workable landscape and play areas and any areas that we have around the house that are disturbed. This homeowners association and the association fee that these homeowners will be paying will be taking care of that. And that guarantees that the site's going to remain attractive and a good investment for our buyers. Now, as far as some of the homes that back up to the soccer fields, that may not be what you or I like, but that is, I can tell you that I know from past experience, that's exactly what some homeowners would like, to be able to have their kids open their sliding door and go out in the field and play, hang around at the gazebo. So I think that is a very attractive amenity for some. And you have to remember that these homes will be built by market-driven need, and each homeowner is going to pick their own home in their own location. So if that field and that play area doesn't appeal to them, then they would just move on to a different location. So I understand your concerns, but I will tell you that we've completed all the projects that we've had. I've been doing this for over 35 years, and we think this is going to be a very attractive community for your town.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
this, might
Go
I
ahead.
make a suggestion to help address Eric's comment? Because part of it, I think, feels like a coordination issue. So, I think that in different pieces and parts, the applicant has provided the information that Eric's looking for, whether he agrees with it or not. I think that they have provided it, but it may be better for him and the board to be able to review it if it actually was on a landscape plan as opposed to the landscape plan for the streets and then the various landscape plans for the houses. So it would be possible for the applicant to coordinate those plans so that they appear together, so the board can understand how the whole village will look with the landscaping together on one plan.
I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you. Mr. Erickson, you think that can be done?
And we will do that.
Okay,
And I think, let me rephrase the sense. Mr. Erickson, thanks for your response. And I think these are, maybe they're all concerns, but really, I think they're issues that need to be addressed. We spent a fair amount of time, again, talking about civil and landscaping and grading, and there's been little to none discussion about what you're delivering and providing. So the fact that you can speak to the fifth development that you have of 40B, the fact that you just finished a very successful one, these are all interesting things to hear for the board and for the people of Newbury to understand what you're going to be doing here. Yes, you've had submitted some plans, but as an architect, I know that, plans are hard for people to read and understand what's going on. So part of my effort is not a concern or an issue that has to be gotten over or decided on. It's some of these are just items that I'd like to bring to light and have a discussion so the community can understand what you're building.
Thank you.
Good.
I would also like to say that I am building one of these homes right now in Groton, Mass, because I wanted to work out the kinks and all the bugs in the home. So if any board member would like to take a tour of that house, I'd be happy to meet with you anytime. And I can actually show you the house and we can walk through it. And it's very attractive design.
Thank you. I think that speaks volumes in terms of your standing and your, if someone said, do you have the ability to pull this off and do you really care about what you're building? Then understanding that you're going through that process is extremely helpful here.
Thank you.
All right. So now that we've had that little back and forth, I'll continue to read the items. So across the copy of the waivers, there was a zoning analysis for 55 rear Pearson Drive, and it does state the waivers that were requested. And again, you've listed them here, and all I'd like to know is that if there's anything that's been updated or changed to what was originally submitted, so that everybody can understand what you're seeking in terms of the zoning process here by doing a 40B, and that was the intent of that question. So we did receive it. We do have it. It's on. There's 3 pages, and I just would like to make sure that it's updated as we go along.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, we have been monitoring as we've made changes to the project based on our previous meetings and discussions to make sure that those changes haven't resulted in the need for an additional waiver or a different magnitude of the waiver, or that we've actually eliminated the need for a waiver. And there hasn't been any of that yet, Eric, but usually what we will do is as we wind down towards a discussion of those waivers, and we start to understand what conditions or specific requirements the board may impose, then I will do just that. I'll go back through the waivers once again, make sure they address any conditions or concerns or changes that the board requires. That way, when we get to a discussion of the waivers, it will be updated. But what you have now, quite honestly, does reflect the waivers that we would need to build the project as it's been, say, modified to date. So that is up to date, but yes, we will be making sure and verifying that is up to date when the board's ready to start discussing those.
Great. Appreciate that. Homeowners Association documentation, including covenants and homeowners requirements. We did receive that, and I was just looking over page 39, and it talks about no boats, trailers, ATVs, four-wheelers, motorhomes, all garbage and trash. Talks about waste. It talks about exterior parking. So just wanted to see it, and again, make sure that everybody knew that there was a comprehensive homeowners association statute or whatever forms the board and the rules and regulations of the homeowners, plus then the actual stipulations of the rules and regulations as Exhibit A to that. So there's a fair amount of them. I think the board, we should read through them and just make sure, but they seem fairly well and in full cover somebody that's done this before, talking about the use of grills on the property in compliance with all terms and conditions set forth in the master deed. So the next, identifying the location of affordable units and development schedule. You did answer that question by saying the location of the affordable units is approved by Mass Housing as part of the regulatory agreement, post approval of the comprehensive permit. You then at the end did say that you were proposing to designate the following units: 4, 9, 13, 14, 18, and 24. But we assume that those could change as the number of unit types that you have are limited. So thank you. I think we're just trying to get an understanding of how this might unfold. Number 5, request additional landscape plans, streetscape, and individual units. I think we covered that in the first one in the discussion, just trying to put it all together and just understand a full plan, so that with the photos and with driving around Newbury and imagining what this development might look like, we can see the whole picture. Number 6, request a copy of the agreement with the neighbor's entrance. You noted that there are 2 houses, one on either side of the entry roadway. The applicant controls the home to the left of the entrance. The neighbors to the right are supportive of the project and have reached an agreement with the applicant on the location of the roadway and the provisions of fencing and landscaping to provide protective buffers to their home. And there is no written agreement to be forwarded or had. So you're making a statement that those neighbors are in agreement. I guess if the board had issue or concern, we could ask the neighbor, but I would think that the answer suffices, at least for me. Number 7, wanted land to be donated shown on the plan. You noted last time that you had reached out numerous times to Fisheries and Wildlife, but they've been unresponsive to numerous calls. You're not giving up the idea of donating land, and maybe the land possibly goes to the town instead of to the Fish and Wildlife. And it's to be kept up by the homeowners association as open space. So I think we'd just like to understand what that is and where it goes, and that if you are, say you're going to donate it, that it just gets followed through on in the proper way. Question: solar panels. So you're working with Boston Solar, they're a known entity in the design installation of solar panels. And I guess the point of the question was just to understand, when you say that, is were you thinking actually every home, or were you really going through a plan that some houses would have them and some houses would not, because of maximizing the cost per the installation per the beneficial orientation of the home?
So Boston Solar has modeled the homes based on the orientation that we have on our site plan. It looks like the minimum design that we can put on there would be 6 kilowatts. Some would be larger than that, but that would be the minimum. So every single home would have solar panels there. We believe with the addition of these solar panels, we should be able to, and our energy efficient appliances, windows, heaters, on-demand water heater, we should be able to get our HERS rating into 20s and 30s.
But the answer to the base question is that it is proposed that every home would have solar panels, correct, Walter?
Yes,
Yeah, I believe that's a commendable effort in this day and age, and most bigger cities are requiring at least a energy on-site renewable energy study to prove out that what you can or can't do. And so by putting that in, I think you're keeping up with current thoughts on sustainability, which is good. Number 9, what other developments in Newbury are like this one? Response is, this is the applicant's first proposed project in Newbury, and the applicant does not have firsthand knowledge of other 40B projects in the town. In terms of the design and density, the cottages at Drake's Landing, a new development in West Newbury, represents a good representation of a similar project. So there is something close by, which is good for people that are interested to see what development might be. So the cottages at Drake's Landing is not a Mr. Erickson development, is that correct?
that's correct.
But it is, you would say that that's similar to the quality and type of development you would do.
I would. And the roadways and the closeness of the houses is similar.
Thank you. Discussion of the architectural styles and the benefits of the benefits this neighborhood will provide. So the architectural styles of the homes proposed was chosen for several reasons. First, it's the applicant's belief that the architecture, including materials and size, is comparable and consistent with home styles in the area, not only in Newbury, but in surrounding towns, and styles very much in demand. The applicant has developed homes of this style in several towns in Massachusetts, and they have been very well received and sold quickly. The architectural style, based on my client's experience, is in keeping with the desires of both young families and old buyers looking to downsize, and so appeals to a wide variety of buyers. The proposed homes neighborhood therefore becomes available to buyers of all ages, including those with children. Condominium ownership structure, smaller yards, higher quality building materials proposed, along with energy efficient homes, will result in less cost and less maintenance for the buyers. This is also characteristic in demand in the market. Given its expected diversity ownership, young, older couples, families, the village style design is expected that this neighborhood will be highly attractive to people looking to purchase new homes in today's market, which has a shortage of inventory. In short, it's the applicant's expectations that the style, size, design, and proposed amenities will make this a very attractive option for new home buyers looking to live in close-knit communities in Newbury. Okay. So thank you, and I think some of your previous comments add to your response to this about architectural styles and how you selected it. And number 11, request for a full traffic study. Traffic, in response, the traffic to be generated by the proposed project does not warrant the completion of a full TIS. The applicant has provided a traffic assessment report for the project, which has been reviewed by the town's traffic peer review consultant, Stantec. Stantec found that the report to be conservative and done in accordance and accepted with the transportation engineering practices and procedures. Further, they found that no traffic-related operational issues were identified in the traffic assessment, and that that you concur with the overall assessment that this development will not significantly affect normal traffic operations and safety. So, understood that. I don't know if anybody has any additional comments on that.
I think that Stanek, who we hired to assess the situation, was in agreement with the applicant that there's no traffic impact to the neighborhood, or I shouldn't say no impact, but none out of the ordinary.
Okay.
So I think that covers that one, Eric.
Yes. Number 12. Board member wanted more information on sprinklers to be provided. So residential sprinklers are designed for use throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and are subject to both state and local regulations. The system to be used in the projects have not yet been designed. They will be designed by an engineer and licensed to do so, and will be submitted to the fire department and building department for review. So I think that answers that question, and it would be in the buildings inspector's purview. And if it's submitted to the fire department as well, that's great. 13, will 20-foot driveways be large enough? Based on the applicant's discussion with the traffic engineers, 20-foot driveways are adequate to support today's vehicles. While 95% of cars on the road today are less than 19 feet in length, the average passenger vehicle is only 14.5 feet in length. This information, along with the fact that most driveways and/or parking space regulations call for 20 feet, supports the provisions of a 20-foot driveway. That was number 13. And I think along with that, is 20 feet the norm or the minimum or average for other developments, Mr. Erickson, that you've done?
I think most towns require 18 feet. And I think it also would be typical of the parking space requirement that you normally need for commercial spaces, 10 feet wide, 16 feet long. So we have found 20 feet to be more than enough.
Okay. And again, the question was derived from Newbury and the larger lots and larger driveways, and the fact that you're condensing homes in a tighter condition, that someone parking their car in their driveway and the second car outside their garage, and then a visitor comes along. If the visitor parks in the street, just trying to understand what that might all mean with the size of the driveways and the roads and the density of the homes. So,
Well, we will end up having 4 spaces, 2 inside the garage and 2 outside. And we have some visitor parking on the roadway, but it would be typical of what you would see in the villages downtown, where the houses are closer together and closer to the street. And that's the concept that we're actually trying to achieve.
okay. And number 14, where are we applying the National Fire Code regulations and not Massachusetts regulations for your roadway design? So please note that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has adopted the national standards and therefore does not have a specific Massachusetts standards. Is that true? I think Mr. Osgood is on the phone.
Yes, there are fire code regulations in Massachusetts, but as far as driveways and roadways, they do not impose any additional conditions over what's listed in the NFPA regulations.
Thank you. With that, there were some attachments of previously issued renderings of the homes and the home styles. And then there were 4 photographs of Drake's Landing showing streetscape of built homes that have, completed homes, completed landscape, cars in the driveway. Some of these have little picket fences in front of the porch, but it's a completed and finished product. I don't know if would like to see those now or share those or have them available, posted on the website for people to see.
This package has been posted to the website, Mr. Swan.
Great. Then we would direct anybody that would like to see renderings of the proposed homes and photographs of Drake's Landing, which again is in West Newbury, as a precedent, similar type development. So if I could just, Mr. Chairman, if you have anything else, or if anybody else wants to jump in, but I'm going to take a second just to reread my notes and double check.
Yeah, go right ahead. So, Mr. Erickson, where is Drake's Landing in West Newbury? Do you know where it is?
I apologize. I had to Google it myself and drive there with MapQuest, so I don't really know.
I guess
It's,
I can do the same thing.
It's off of Main Street. It's off of 113, right
Okay.
behind the old American Legion building. So if you're traveling towards West Newbury, it's on the left-hand side.
Okay.
They did a beautiful job. It looks great. And in fact,
It's not done yet, though, Walter, just so you
No.
know. It's not quite complete.
yeah, they actually put a fire pit and a pergola in the open space area as well, which is something that I had never thought of before, but worth thinking about for this project as well.
And Lisa, let me ask you if board members wanted to go take Mr. Erickson up on his offer to show us a house that he's building now. Do we need to post it as a meeting, or how would that be handled?
No, you don't, site visits no longer need to be posted as a public meeting, but if you go together, if there's more than, well, if there's two of you, if you go, you may not, you can't have any deliberation. You can look at it, you could ask questions about it, but you can't have any deliberation about this project.
Right, okay, thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
Susan, I believe, has my email address and my cell phone number. So I can meet any board member anytime, even if you want to go on a weekend, Saturday or Sunday, or sometime that's convenient for you.
Okay,
And then I would
thank
just ask that what we would need to do is enter it into the record at the next meeting that you actually went there and observed it.
Okay, thank you. Mario, do you have any questions for anybody or comments at this time?
You're muted. Mario, you're muted.
Yeah, there you go. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah. No, not to share it, to belabor any of the points. I mean, I share the concerns that Eric had, same ones, and I appreciate Lisa's comments about the renderings. So I think I'm good at this point.
Okay, thank you. All
And
right,
Mr. Chairman, I checked my notes, and yes, all the questions were answered, so I appreciate the full response.
okay, thank you. Susan, do we have any raised hands from the public?
Susan, you're muted. Susan, you're
Lisa,
muted.
You're muted.
For us.
Yeah, I see initials of an SDP DB. So if you could share with us who you are, I'm going to ask to unmute.
Hi, my name is Brian Richardson. I'm at 58 Pearson Drive. I got several questions, couple comments for us and a question. You guys mentioned, first of all, Drake's Lane. You're right, it is off of 113 Main Street in West Newbury, a very main road. It's very similar to Central Street off here in Byfield, not Pearson Drive. Not putting Cricket Lane off of Pearson Drive, it's putting Drake's Lane off of a main road. So you guys talk about traffic and you don't see there's a major traffic issue. So now you know how many houses, approximately about 70 houses currently on Pearson Drive. Do the math on how many cars are already. You're gonna put this development, 40B, doesn't matter what you wanna call it, 40B, 40, whatever. You're adding 104 cars, which you guys stated last meeting, twice a day. 208 cars per day coming from the complete length of Pearson Drive on this road. It's not coming off of Central Street. It's coming off of Central Street, onto Orchard Street, then on to Pearson Drive, then on the so-called Cricket Lane. That is really, really a major, major problem. You want to talk about causing problems for a lot of families around here, a lot of young families that moved into this neighborhood just recently with young kids, no sidewalks, no streetlights, a lot of safety issues. So my other thing to, Mr. Swan brought up a lot of good points. Why 24 units? If you'd want to build something here, whatever, the guy's got the right. But why 24? Why not 14? Why not 12? Why not 10? Why the size of this project at the end of this cul-de-sac? Make another cul-de-sac. That's the problem. You're trying to force something down a lot of people's throats because we don't meet this 40B requirement in this town. And now we're desperate to put it in here so we get this funding from the state. And now these people on this street, including myself, have to suffer. So that's my comment. Sorry.
You said you had a question?
Yes, why, all right, back to the question. Why 24 units? Why can't we, why do we have to use, why are we stuck on 24 units? Why can't we limit the amount of units being built
Okay.
or being proposed, excuse me?
Okay. Mr. DeShanes, you want to respond to that question at this time? Or Mr. Erickson?
Well, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect to the gentleman asking the question, we are proposing the number of units we are so that we are assured an economically viable project which conforms to the state guidelines and requirements for building this type of housing. And so we are pursuing the permits to do something that is legally allowed and something that can be done in an economically viable fashion. I don't have any more answer than that in terms of the question of why it has to be 24 or why can't the town limit it. Perhaps that question is better answered by the board or town council, but again, my client is proposing a project that is within the law and it's quite frankly typical of 40B projects that I've certainly worked on, dozens in fact, that this is the density that we're proposing is typical in these types of projects.
I disagree. It's not typical. It's not typical of this specific situation on Pearson Drive. It might be down in Drake's Lane or down in Groton and over in Westford and everything else because it's more convenient off of a more popular road. But here in Pearson Drive, if it was coming off of Central Street or Route 1, probably. But the congestion on this road already is at its max. And now you're going to add 24 units, 208 cars per day. It's ridiculous. That's what I'm talking to the council, to Howard, to Eric, and everybody else on the council. Please consider that before you start ruining other people's livelihoods on this street.
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
Susan, do we have anyone else?
We do. We have a Bart Bracken. I'm going to ask him to unmute.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to comment that 40Bs in these kind of rural areas, I wouldn't say there's anything typical about them, but when I talk to people about 40B applications and that we share with them kind of our situation, people just roll their eyes that this is a misuse of a very important statute. But that's not my question. My question is that you've talked about the landscaping. And as I think I would state that I've received, I'm in a butter. and I've received absolutely no communication or outreach whatsoever on this project. I don't feel there's an effort to really work with the butters. So when we talk about landscaping, what are you proposing in terms of trying to, block our views of a development that's taking over our woods? I also understand that you're proposing lights, and you thought that was a good thing on the road leading into the development. We have no lights in this neighborhood, so that's something very different. Why do you think that's a good idea? Could you talk a little bit about what you're going to do to protect the abutters who are going to be very significantly adversely affected by this development plopped into our backyards?
Okay, Mr. DeShanes or Mr. Erickson, would you like to respond?
Walter, would you respond with respect to the lights, please? I mean,
Well, I would just as soon not put lights up as well, but it's one of the requirements of the town. So we thought we would put a light up at the intersection and a few others along the length of the roadway. I share your view about streetlights. We try to use light fixtures that are dark sky, night sky compliant. And I think street light should be as well. As far as landscaping to the abutters, I'm not sure exactly where your house is located, but I'd be happy to talk to you about it anytime individually.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Susan, anyone else?
Yeah, we have Peter Frangos.
I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I have 3 questions. I know that Ben mentioned that the septic system is a very technologically advanced system. All septic systems have to be pumped. What's the frequency? That's question 1. You can answer that in a second. Question 2, this is a Susan question. On the website, I was trying to find the VACL site control PNS agreement. It didn't open. You can answer that later. We can talk about that later. And the last question actually is sort of ties into what Eric said. And I guess this is a general question that I don't have an answer for, but I used to travel a lot to areas that were economically challenged. And for about 4 or 5 years, I drove past the same unfinished development. Is there a performance bond requirement for this project? If things change economically, will this project start and sit? Will it be finished? If it does sit, we're stuck with something that we can't do anything about because we have no control over it. So those are my 3 questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. DeShanes or Mr. Erickson, can you answer the 2 questions that were for you?
Well, on the septic system, this is Presby Septic System, and is a homeowners association. The homeowners association is required by law, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, but to hire somebody who will professionally manage and inspect the community septic system, and it has to be pumped out, I think a minimum of every 2 years. Is that correct, Ben? Ben's muted, Susan.
That's correct, Walter. The inspector will determine if it needs pumping, and 2 years is the minimum requirement. If it needs pumping more often, they will have it pumped more often. But it will be inspected by a licensed septic system. And actually, it's a wastewater treatment operator licensed by the state. Will have a contract to inspect this system 4 times a year.
so, Mr. Chairman, I can't address the question about I guess the gentleman was having some issues accessing the control documents on the website, but I know they've been provided. In fact, in June, we provided updated site control documentations with the extensions that had been signed so that we could show that our control of the property extends, continues today. With regard to the performance bond requirement, unlike typical subdivisions, 40B projects, there's no requirement under the law that there be a performance bond provided for the project. And in fact, with regular subdivisions, that performance bond is limited to roadway development. There's never a performance bond for the project as a whole. Again, the current real estate market and the predictions that we are hearing in the industry is that the market will stay strong for at least the next year and two, and could continue on beyond that. But there is evidence today that the market will continue to stay strong. As many of you may know, there is a tremendous demand for new homes, especially homes the size and price range that Mr. Erickson is proposing. And as we discussed somewhat earlier, and I will provide the board more information on this, Mr. Erickson has done 5 of these types of projects. They have all been very successful. You can certainly check with the state. He is well respected with the state in terms of 40B projects. He is known as a developer who has done good projects that have been successful. So we don't expect anything less for this project. And quite frankly, given its location in Newbury and the design of the project, we are very, very optimistic that this thing is going to be very well received and there will be a significant demand. And quite frankly, if that wasn't the case, Mr. Erickson wouldn't be proposing to do this project.
Okay, thank you. Susan, next.
I will look at it after we're done with this meeting. It's too cumbersome for me to do on my phone, so.
Right. Okay, so do we have any other?
Yeah,
People
we
who-
have Dan Linden.
Okay,
Hi, thanks. This is Dan Linden. I'm a resident on Pearson Drive. So I just wanted to reiterate, I appreciate my neighbor's comments. Brian's point about the fact that all the new traffic is going to be coming from the far end of Pearson Drive. So I understand that a traffic study is not needed. That has nothing to do with the families in the neighborhood. It has to do with, do we need a traffic light at Orchard? How is it going to affect Orchard onto Central? Those are the questions that the traffic study would look into. It doesn't have to do with me walking my girls around the block and having to deal with a lot more traffic going, again, to the far end of Pearson Drive, where right now only a couple houses worth of cars ever go that far, right? So when you consider that this is a cul-de-sac that has 70 houses, if you were to walk a loop, some parts of that loop have more traffic because more cars have to go by wherever you are walking. And then other parts, there's fewer. So you add a development, now the whole thing becomes a throughway. And that is there is no other issue in this entire project that is as big as that. And I still question this, the comment that Drake's Landing or Sugar Maple Lane in Westford, these are not analogous because they're off main roads. They are not off of a cul-de-sac of 70 houses of residents that pay taxes to the town and bought their houses like I did with the expectation I would be in a certain kind of neighborhood. I would love to have new neighbors, other families, all that stuff, but the location is not very good. And the other problem with this is that the whole point of a 40B is to provide affordable housing and community, right? So it's the state putting pressure on towns to come up with solutions to provide affordable housing. Newbury is not good, right? Like many towns in the state, there's just not enough affordable housing. But that doesn't mean that the town has to say yes to putting in a project that doesn't make any sense. We're not even taking a significant chip at the affordable housing need in this town by adding this project. We're adding 4 houses, and the town needs, I forget what the number was, it's maybe 200 in order to be at the 10% level so that other 40B projects couldn't come in. So, you know, the town is not getting a lot from this project. And what it is doing is it's inducing a burden on a group of residents that have, you know, variably been here. Some of them have been here since the start of Pearson Drive 40 years ago. Some are new. It's just not the kind of thing that you do to a neighborhood. And finally, I don't question Mr. Erickson's work. The photos I've seen, the other developments, I think the houses would look nice. And I do agree that the style of the houses would be, you could sell them easily. What I don't think is going to be easily sold on people is how close these houses are to each other and where they're located. So if I were to take a look at one of these houses and I'd have to drive through Orchard and then go through Pearson Drive and then come to this development in the middle of the woods, I would think about what my commute to work would look like, and it wouldn't be very attractive to me. Not to mention the fact that you have no room on either side of you, and you're not in a developed town like Newburyport where, hey, you could walk to a restaurant. Who cares if you've got neighbors on either side? You can walk to a restaurant. You can walk to public transit. None of those things are available to the people in this community if this development were to be built. So on the fundamentals, it doesn't make sense. Thanks.
Thank you. Sue?
Stephen, did you have a question? You're gonna unmute yourself. There you go.
All right, thank you very much. Stephen Godzik, I'm on 7 Pearson Drive in Byfield, and we're one of the 40-year residents that we just mentioned. And I just want to reiterate that it's the location of the project. That's the concern. You could talk about solar panels, length of driveways, flowers in front of the porch, kids playing soccer in the neighborhood. It doesn't matter. The whole idea is the more you talk about that, we're losing sight of the fact that the development does not belong there. And I'm very disappointed at the traffic people that say, 208 to 250 trips a day has no impact. It just seems outrageous to me. Two meetings ago, about 2 months ago, I was told that I was going to get an answer about the applicant claiming that there's access to public transportation. I haven't gotten an answer to that. Why that was even answered that way on the application, I have no idea. And I have a question about walking around the neighborhood. I noticed cars parked on the street, visitors. Now, is there going to be a parking ban in that area of Pearson Drive just in case a fire engine has to come down or an ambulance or anything like that? All right, is there a traffic ban proposed because the street is too narrow to make a turn like that? I have no problem with the quality of the workmanship may be fine. But what we're basing it on is the applicant's ability to put a square peg in a round hole. It's the location of the project that's the problem. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, could I just mention that that I did submit a written response to the questions concerning the basis of the information provided with regard to public transportation, and how we answered our questions on our sustainable development principles portion of our application. The letter is dated October 19th, and I do believe it is available on your website.
Okay, thank you. Susan?
Brad Smith.
Hello, Bradford Smith. I live at 6 Pearson Drive. I have two questions. The first one is in reference to Mr. Erickson had 5 other projects. Are any of these projects similar to the one on Pearson Drive in that they're built off of a cul-de-sac? Can somebody address that? Or are these all standalone projects?
Could you give us all your questions and then they can answer?
Okay, and then the second one
each
is, Mr. Richardson asked about why does this project have to be 24 units? And Mr. Deschaines responded that it's economically viable. I believe based on the application, unless I have these numbers wrong, the anticipated sales and revenue is supposed to be 11.9 million. The cost to develop the project is 10.6 million. So therefore, there's a profit of 1.3 million. That's a 12% profit. At what point is that not economically viable? What numbers are you looking for to make this a viable project? Why does it have to be a 12% profit and 1.3 million profit? I'm done.
So the projects that I have done, some are off small, narrow roads that would be similar to Pearson Drive. Most of the projects, though, the developments that I've done have been standalone. And as far as profit margin, we lose a considerable amount of money on the affordable units. You know, for the home ownership units, they will be sold at approximately $320,000, I believe. The market rate units will be, almost twice that. So that goes into the calculations, but under the state guidelines, we are allowed to make a 20% profit, up to a 20% profit. And I can tell you that the state has an independent auditor that audits books after. If we make in excess of that, the money is returned to the town.
Okay, thank you. Susan? Anyone
Dan
else?
Dan Linden would like to ask another question.
Okay. Mr. Linden?
Thank you. Yeah, I just, two things I missed. So related to the previous question, I'm curious about it. Maybe Mr. Erickson doesn't have an example, and it's understandable. He's not responsible for hundreds of projects here, but I'd like to see an example of a 40B that was added to a cul-de-sac in Massachusetts. So we keep talking about comparable developments. If we can come up with an example similar to that, that would be helpful and analogous here. The second part is I'm curious about this conversation with the owner at 57 Pearson. So point number 6 in the questions that were raised and answered said there's not a written agreement, but the neighbors to the right are supportive of the project. Those owners haven't been in residence for a while now. They're on a detail out of this country. And so I don't know who's having, who had the conversation there, if they're talking to the renters that are at that property now. But that's a detail that seemed curious to me. Thank you.
I met the homeowners there. I believe they're in London now, but I met the homeowners there this past year. We walked the property. We discussed what we were doing. We went over the site. I told him I would put fencing and landscaping along his property lines, and we shook hands, and that's what I'll be doing.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Just following up on Mr. Linden's question, Mr. Erickson, do you know of other 40B projects that are built on a similar street as off of a similar street such as Pearson Drive? Or Mr. Deschaines, in your experience, are you aware of any that are similar? Not the project itself, but the location that the residents are questioning.
Mr. Chairman, I can't off the top of my head give you an address, but I will provide the board a list of 40B projects within the state of Massachusetts that have in fact been a result of an extension of an existing cul-de-sac or an existing road, or there's no question in my mind that there are such projects in Massachusetts.
And Mr. Chairman, I don't think it's a question of whether or not it's off a cul-de-sac. It's whether or not it affects the service level of the roadway. And I think the traffic analysis that we've done and the report by Stantec clearly shows that it does not.
Okay, well, I'm aware of the traffic reports, but I'm trying to get an answer for Mr. Linden's question.
And I will do that, Mr. Chairman, and I will provide it in writing.
All right, thank you. Susan, who else?
Mr. Linden would like to ask another question.
Okay,
Thanks. No, just to follow up on the traffic part. So we had, I forget his name, a couple meetings ago that provided information on the traffic consulting. And he made some very good points. I may have disagreed with him about, what the number of cars and how often a car would be passing and what that means. But one thing he did note was that this project was strange in that it was going to be a development so far off of a main road, right? So I would, if Mr. Duchesne thinks there's other projects like this, I'm telling you, I'd love to see them. An extension of a cul-de-sac where the housing spacing and the design are similar to the existing cul-de-sac, that doesn't qualify, right? Because we're talking about a community here. Most of us have 2/3 of an acre. It is not the density that Cricket Lane is proposed to be. So again, we want an example of an existing neighborhood, a cul-de-sac, where a development of this type has been added. Thank you.
okay. I think Mrs. Duchesne said he was going to work on providing that. Susan, who else?
No one at this time. Oh,
Okay, so,
hold on. Paul Rowe just raised his hand.
Hi, Paul Rowe here, 3 Pearson Drive. Around this area where I've been living now for about 27 years, there is, it gets dark around here, around coming towards winter, around 4:30, 5 o'clock. We don't have one street light on this street, on Pearson Drive. The whole cul-de-sac has no lights. It's pitch black. If somebody wants to take a walk down Pearson Drive at night, they're risking their lives. And if they go onto Orchard Street, they're definitely risking their lives. In the daytime, now I'm at number 3. So in the daytime, I look out my front window. I see dog walkers, I see bikes, kids, joggers, everybody. They're all coming down Pearson Drive to, walk around and enjoy the area. We have no sidewalks either. So once this cul-de-sac goes in, this cluster housing subdivision that you want to call a village, all of these cars are going to be coming down there. These people aren't going to want to walk the kids down Pearson Drive anymore. They're not going to be able to. There's going to be so much traffic coming and going. It's going to be impossible to do that. One reason why I moved out here was because of the quietness and peacefulness of the area. You talk about some of the people that are hearing about this place going in. There's a lot of signs that are going up right now. House for sale, house for sale, house for sale, all on Pearson Drive, because they see what's coming. They see that this is not going to work. Now I'm just going to go back to, no streetlights. the narrow road where the subdivision is gonna go in is 18 to 20 feet wide. We have another person that was talking about neighbors and their cars, people visiting on one side of the street or the other side of the street. It's just gonna be a mess if the fire department has to get down that street. I mean, that's all really I got to say. It's just, I don't think it makes any sense at all, putting this at the end of Pearson Drive. If our streets were wider, if we had sidewalks, if we had street lights, but you'd have to go down the entire street, putting in street lights, putting in stop signs, and watch out for the children playing and the bikes and all of that stuff, then okay, maybe something like that would work. But that's not what we're looking at here. We're looking at a neighborhood that's very narrow streets, no streetlights, and no sidewalks. That's what's really bothering me. I believe that people are gonna get hurt. Basically, I have a son that's disabled. He has a three-wheeler bike. We take him down Pearson Drive on that three-wheeler. When these cars start coming down the street, I am absolutely going to be afraid that something's going to happen because I have to steer the bike for my son. And I'm just afraid something's going to happen to him or to somebody else that lives on the street that's riding their bikes or walking their dogs. It doesn't make any sense putting it there. And like I said, on Route 1, yeah, on a main street like Central Street, going off there and having it down there, that's fine. But, I have no problem. I don't have any problem with neighbors either. But, putting it at the end of Pearson Drive just doesn't make any sense at all to me. That's all I got to say.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Susan, anyone else?
Nope.
Okay, so Eric or Mario, do you have anything else for tonight?
No, Mr. Chairman, no more questions for me. Thank you.
Okay, Mario?
None for me either. No.
Okay, applicant
Miss-
have any,
Did Paul Rowe have another question?
Yeah, I just didn't want to interrupt, Chairman.
Okay, just one more thing.
sure,
Did they do a blasting survey? Are they gonna do a blasting survey? A pre-blasting survey for the houses that are around that whole area? Because I know the last subdivision that they were gonna put in last time, there was gonna be some blasting that had to occur. And I'm just wondering if that's
we'll ask
gonna
the,
happen or what the deal is with that.
okay. Mr. Erickson, can you address that question?
Well, we're not anticipating having to do any blasting, but if we do, the state law requires that we pull permits from the fire department and do a blasting survey to any residents within 300 feet.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Erickson or Mr. DeShanes, do you have any other comments for tonight's meeting?
No, Mr. Chairman, except that we will be providing, if I'm just checking my notes to make sure I didn't miss it. We're gonna try to put together a single page comprehensive landscape so you can see the whole development as a whole. I am gonna provide a synopsis, just a listing of Mr. Erickson's other projects and locations. And I will also do some research to provide examples of other projects that are similar in terms of being developed off an existing residential roadway or cul-de-sac or a non-main street. So I will provide those things. And again, if the board, any of the members would like to view the house in Groton, I don't know how we coordinate that, but Mr. Erickson and I are happy to coordinate that and make that happen.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, let me just ask town council, do you have any advice in the direction we're going with this?
No,
You made a good suggestion about providing plans. Yep, go ahead.
no, I would say
did-
if any of the members, if any of the members want to visit, they should give the information to Susan, who can then coordinate with the applicant, I think, relative to visiting that site in Groton. And then I think you just need to continue the meeting, Mr. Chair, to, I think what we talked about is December 17th at 7:30 to follow up on those items we talked about tonight and the response to the environmental comments.
Okay, right. Okay, thank you. So Susan, we're all set for the environmental information for 2 weeks?
We are confirmed with LEC, and also Civil, Joe Sirwaka will be on hand as well to tie up any loose ends that there may be.
All right, very good. So can we have a motion to adjourn or to continue, I guess, continue to December 17th?
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing till December 17th
At 7:30.
at 7:30.
Second that motion.
Okay, Eric?
Yes.
Okay, and Mario?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes. So the motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.